Dolphins and Jets find themselves right in the middle of a jam-packed race for the AFC wildcard. Every win is critical. Coverage of the Dolphins and Jets. Sunday at noon Eastern on ESPN Radio.
Hey, here's what's coming up on the First Take podcast. Family, food, and football. We'll break down the NFL Thanksgiving games. Plus, what is Johnny Manziel's football future? And how many games will the Warriors win this season? That and so much more coming up on the podcast. Good morning and welcome into First Take on Thanksgiving Eve. Thank you for joining us. Skip Bayless and Molly Karam here in studio. Stephen A. joins us from Philly. Hello, gentlemen.
What's up? Good morning. How y'all doing?
We're doing great, and I wanted to say publicly, I'm so happy that you and your mom got good news about her health yesterday. God bless her.
Thank you.
Love you, Mom.
Thank you so much.
Yes, and I hope you have a wonderful holiday,
Appreciate that.
Stephen A.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we will.
Okay,
yes, we will.
Good. Enjoy it. All right. We will also enjoy the three NFL games we have tomorrow, so let's get into one of them.
Well, we hope we will.
Yeah. Skip might.
Yes.
Skip might.
Yes.
We'll
That's
see.
True.
Panthers-Cowboys headline the Thanksgiving Day lineup. The Panthers enter a game a perfect 10-0, while the Cowboys are a perfect 3-0 with Tony Romo. Will Dallas be able to knock Carolina from the ranks of the unbeaten, Skip?
Molly, Stephen A. Smith, I really, truly like my Dallas Cowboys to win this football game. And I'm here to tell you that if they do win, and they will win, I won't consider it an upset. I don't want to hear all this talk about how Tony Romo upset, 9-0 Peyton Manning back in 2006. I don't want to hear that Tony Romo went late in the year, you remember, in 2009 to New Orleans and upset 13-0 Drew Brees. That's putting this in the upset category at 10-0 Panthers coming to Jerry World. I'm sorry, I don't want to hear that. I just think, as I thought before the season, I thought Dallas was a little better than Carolina going into the year. And now, obviously, that my quarterback is back and my best in football wide receiver is back at about, I'll give Dez about 80% on his surgically repaired foot. I still think Dallas is just a little bit better than Carolina. I'm sorry. I'm going to say it again. My Cowboys were in position to win 6 of the 7 straight games they lost. They lost 2 of them in overtime. They had chances in the fourth quarter in 4 of the other games. And all they were lacking was a quarterback who could make just one late play. And finally, I got to watch, a sight for sore eyes, my Cowboys, their confidence just exploded back to life when Tony Romo made those plays that made the difference at Miami. You can say it's just the Dolphins at Miami. I get all that. This team was in desperate need of some confidence building, and I think the confidence exploded with Tony Romo's return. And I think it will continue to explode on a short week as it just motivates them right into Cam's visit tomorrow. And I do believe, as much as I didn't want Greg Hardy on my team, I think he'll be inspired to play against his old teammates. I do. I think he'll take it up a level. I think my Cowboy defense will be inspired to play against the Cam Newton. I'm going to throw this out. He did his interview yesterday, we saw, wearing his Carolina Superman T-shirt with the Superman logo in blue, obviously. And, you know, God bless Cam. Love him. He's having just a breakout, astonishing year, but pretty full of himself. He's pretty confident to the point of being pretty cocky. So, again, will my defense play inspired against him? I think it will. My defense is getting quietly a little better each week to the point that I think it's now above average. And as much as I respect Carolina's defense, now 5th in points allowed, I got to tell you, I think my offense will immediately become a top 5 offense with Tony Romo back. I think you're going to see that tomorrow against a top 5 defense. So in the end, Stephen A., here's what I'm going to take to the bank. What I really lean on, power ranking wise, is the Vegas odds makers power rankings that came out yesterday. Do you realize my Dallas Cowboys vaulted all the way to 8th in the power rankings, tied with the Denver Broncos, just because Tony Romo is back? That's impressive to me. And I look down those rankings. Your Giants are 12th in the Vegas power rankings. Philly has fallen all the way to 16th and Washington all the way to 28th. So I still believe my Dallas Cowboys are going to win the NFC East. I'll base it on those power rankings. Obviously, it has to continue tomorrow with a victory over a team I just believe they're slightly better than. So at home at Jerry World on a huge late afternoon Thanksgiving stage, I'm going with my Cowboys with conviction, 24-20. Your thoughts, please.
Well, I'm so touched by your conviction because I think you need to be convicted for making that pick. I think it's utterly ridiculous. You have no foundation for it whatsoever as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, we're on opposite ends of the spectrum in this regard. Of course, I'm going to keep talking. You certainly did. Now it's my turn. I will tell you.
I was great.
I will tell you.
Always.
You are absolutely fantastic, Skip Bayless. You elocuted yourself brilliantly. Congratulations. Now let's get back to reality. And then. I know you have to sit up there and convince yourself that what you feel is what you really feel. But I will tell you this. I'm not going to sit there and summarily dismiss your point because I do understand that the Dallas Cowboys have talent. Whether it's Trent Williams, Cole Beasley, Dez Bryant, Jason Witten, with Tony Romo, with the Darren McFadden back there in that offensive line, they can still make some noise. And defensively, they're not scrubs. And I'll give you credit because I think this is exactly the kind of game that a Greg Hardy will get up for and will be hyped to play because he wants to get after Superman himself in Cam Newton.
Yep.
So I get all of that.
Okay.
I get all of that.
Good. Keep talking.
But in the end, what it comes down to is that you're still a relatively dysfunctional squad that sat up there and needed to wait 7 weeks for Tony Romo to come back, to come to the rescue. That is the ultimate indictment against this franchise because the parts around him were good enough to win at least legitimately, at least 3 to 4 of those games. They were ahead in about 5 or 6 of them in the fourth quarter, but you should have won legitimately 3 to 4 of those games.
Okay.
So it's just an indictment against Jason Garrett. It's an indictment against Jerry Jones. It's an indictment against the absence of continuity that they have because they should have kept DeMarco Murray there, but we don't need to revisit that and opine about that. In the end, the Dallas Cowboys, the structure that they had in place, that was built to compete for a Super Bowl title, they shredded. That's what happened, no matter which way you slice it. In the opposite direction, here comes the Carolina Panthers. And they've done exactly the opposite. They have continuity. You've got a Jonathan Stewart who's been there for years, averaging 4 yards a carry, by the way, en route to at least a 1,200-yard season, okay? You've got Cam Newton who's doing his thing.
Yep.
You've got Ted Ginn Jr. You've got Greg Olsen, Mr. Reliable.
Yep.
Jericho Cotchery is playing. Funches is not bad either. And on the offense, this is the third-ranked offense in the NFL. They're doing something right because Cam Newton doesn't just have to throw the ball. He knows how to run the ball. He's incredibly athletic, and he knows how to make plays and make things happen. Now we get to their defense. Whether it's Kawan Short leading them with 6 sacks, whether it's Coney Easley, who was the other guy at Missouri when Michael Sam was there, and everybody was so busy talking about Michael Sam, they forgot that there was somebody on the defensive line better than Michael Sam. He was actually the guy. He was the guy, but go ahead. That's right. Yeah. He was the guy.
He was.
So you got him going on. You got Josh Norman, who's already got 4 interceptions on the year and 2 touchdowns. I'm predicting, Skip, that there's going to be a pick 6 somewhere along the line.
Really?
And the defense for the Carolina Panthers is going to score at least a touchdown. So I look at all of those things. The fact that they've got 31 sacks, the fact that they're the 5th-ranked defense, the fact that they can pressure the quarterback, plus they can defend in the secondary. And I'm looking at all of those things. And you got to remember, not only do you have Josh Norman at the corner to defend your elite, he's an elite corner that can defend your cornerback by himself. But in terms of the middle of the field, if you're Jason Witten, you got a guy like Kuechly who's going to sit up there and shadow McFadden all day long. You got Thomas Davis, who's got 3 sacks on the year, who's a hitter, who's a rough rider, and he's going to be up there to help Kuechly really ensure the middle of the field in between the numbers. I'm looking at it and I'm saying, wait a minute here. How are you going to deal with that? It's the combination of all of that combined with their confidence, it being Thanksgiving Day, that lets me give Carolina the edge. The only nugget that I would give the Dallas Cowboys, Skip, is this. It's Thanksgiving, that's true. But the biggest thing is that Carolina is coming in undefeated. So Dallas will be extra hyped up. But more importantly, to some degree, although the pressure is on them, they're pretty much playing with house money. Because since you lost 7 straight, everyone knows nothing short of perfection is going to get you to the postseason. Perfection doesn't exist in the NFL under most instances. So as a result, the only perfect team was the Miami Dolphins with Mercury Morris, who I can't wait for somebody to shut up. In the end, what it comes down to is you look at them, and perfection is not something that customarily happens, and a mistake is there to be made. And if there was ever a team and a player that could capitalize off of it, it is the Carolina Panthers and Cam Newton. I'm picking Carolina to win this game 27-20.
27-20. That's not supreme conviction on your part. I thought the case you were making sounded like 3-touchdown case to me when you first started.
That's not fair.
Like I should be convicted for my conviction.
No,
right?
that's not fair. The Carolina Panthers, most instances, make games interesting. It's usually tight. Their offense is an offense that gets it done when the pressure's on. Their defense is what really delivers the goods for you, along with Cam Newton's heroics in the fourth quarter. Every game hasn't been against the Redskins. They annihilated those dudes. Their games are usually tough. So that's what this is about. In the end, they will get it done because they're the better football team. And they're en route to perfection themselves. I doubt they're going to let the Dallas Cowboys stand in their way.
Okay, so Tony Romo, if you're watching, Stephen A. Smith has predicted you're going to throw a pick six. I assume it's going to be Josh Norman, but I don't know. Are you going to specify Josh Norman?
Might not be.
It could be Luke Kuechly for all we know, right? Okay.
Well,
so,
Romo's going to get his. He's just not going to be perfect.
Okay.
He's going to make mistakes. He might get hurt. I don't wish that on him. But he might. Somebody's going to put some wood on him. You said that last week,
too, so please keep coming with it. Yeah, you did. You suggested it. Not that you want him to get hurt, but you said it's a distinct possibility.
I don't want him to get hurt.
Right. Remember, Ndamukong Suh might fall on him. We get all that. Last quick point.
Yes.
Our Adam Schefter, our friend Adam, said on SportsCenter the other day that, hey, I'm going to paraphrase his case that he made, Tony Romo could creep into this MVP discussion at some point just because.
No, stop it.
Well, now think about it.
What?
I think there's validity to what Adam's saying. If you look at what Tony did in the first 2 games, sensational. Then you look at what Whedon and Castle couldn't do in the next 7 games. And then let's just say, for the sake of argument, that Tony continues on the role that he started on at Miami, where he was sensational by rusty standards, by Romo, who hasn't played in 7 week standards. What if he gets on a roll and they get on a roll? Could you not make a case that he is that valuable that you'd have to say, wait a second, maybe he's the most valuable player in the league this year?
Hell no.
Hell no?
And I'm going to tell you why. I said hell no. Hell to the no. How about that? Let me tell you something, Skip Bayless. All right? I want to hear that. When I remember the Indianapolis coach threatened to go winless because Peyton Manning was out for the season. And you had people bringing up that argument. We understand how valuable Tony Romo is to the Dallas Cowboys. We get that. But that's also a product of the ineptitude surrounding him. The backup quarterbacks who aren't that great, or the coach who ain't really a coach. He's more of a puppet for the owner. Okay. Let's understand that, okay? Now, and secondly and more importantly, we just had a discussion yesterday about the greatness of Tom Brady, about the greatness of Cam Newton. And, oh, by the way, the day before that, we brought up the greatness of Adrian Peterson, who is balling before they lost to the Green Bay Packers. My point is, how the hell do we go from that to including Tony Romo, who's been absent for 8 weeks in that discussion? That's disrespectful.
I didn't say it. Adam said it. I was just repeating what my friend Adam said. Because Adam's a really smart man.
Well, listen, he's a brilliant man,
he is.
An exceptional reporter, a friend who I love dearly and I love working with on Sunday mornings on Countdown and the Inside. But the fact of the matter matter is, Adam Schefter, I know this is sacrilegious for me to say because, hold on, let me get some tissue right. I'm looking for the tissue right now. I'm getting emotional. I don't like disagreeing with Adam Schefter because I love him. But I have to disagree with that here. I don't want to hear anything about Tony Romo and an MVP conversation. You know you're the MVP of Dallas because you're the only thing that they have to talk about right now. The Mavericks are doing good considering their situation. Rick Carlisle's just an exceptional coach, but we know they ain't winning the championship, okay? Don't get me started with the Texas Rangers. And then obviously you got to look at what you want me to talk about, the Dallas Stars. There's really nothing to talk about in pro sports in Dallas but Tony Romo right now. So I understand in Dallas he might have some MVP stature, but that's about it. I want to hear about him in terms of the league MVP. It is disrespectful to Tom Brady, to Cam Newton, and to Adrian Peterson for Tony Romo to even be a part of the damn conversation. Beat somebody other than Miami. Go ahead and win the rest of these games.
Said
at the end of the season,
starts to win, you start to have the conversation.
We might talk about you.
Yeah.
He shouldn't be in that conversation with those three. You need to stop it. Just stop your pom-pom wearing self. Stop it. Stop it right now.
I'm really impressed you knew the Dallas Stars. I was like, wow, you know who the Dallas Stars are.
Come on now.
Way to go.
Come on, baby.
Next question.
You know, I'm a sports reporter. Come on.
Yeah, you're a sports reporter.
All right, so Skip has Dallas 24-20. Stephen A. has Carolina 27-20. He does not have Tony for MVP. And Vegas sees this one as a toss-up. It's a pick-em game. All right, let's get you guys caught up now on the Johnny Manziel timeline. So after the video surfaced of Johnny Manziel allegedly partying in Texas over the weekend, Mike Pettin announced on Tuesday that he will bench Manziel. Josh McCown will start and Austin Davis will serve as the Browns' backup, with Manziel serving as the third option moving forward. Here's what Pettin said about that move.
We all know what happened and what got put out there, and it's led to much disappointment, frustration, however you want to term it. It was something that we felt that had violated the trust that we had put in him before the bye, coming out of the Pittsburgh game, and it was the decision we made as a result of it.
All right, Stephen A., is this officially the end for Johnny Manziel?
I think it's officially the end for him in Cleveland.
Okay.
I don't think the coach ever was. Skip and I have both talked about this ad nauseum in terms of the coach not being, him not wanting Johnny Manziel in the first place. Here's the problem that Johnny Manziel had. The faith that the owner showed in him ultimately is being usurped by underlings who warned the owner this was their concern with Johnny Manziel coming into the NFL. The owner forced them to take him anyway, against the wishes of Coach Pettin and others. And Coach Pettin appears to have been right. Johnny Manziel is somebody Skip and I both know a little bit. We both root for him. We wish him nothing but the best. On a personal level, I really, really like him a lot. He's a good guy, I believe. I think that he has potential as a player, although I don't feel the way Skip feels about his potential as a player. But in the end, you can't be the starting quarterback having something to prove because you hadn't proven anything yet, knowing they're trying to find out about you on a 5 to 6 game losing streak, by the way, and you're the quarterback of the franchise and partying into the wee hours of the morning, which is what I heard he was doing. Now, we don't know if it was alcohol involved. He had a champagne bottle. We know how it looks. There was nothing illegal going on here. There's nothing for him to be arrested for or anything like that. But you know what your history is. You knew what the concerns of the Browns were. And listening to Pettin yesterday, I get the distinct impression, and I should say not an impression, he flat out said it. Essentially, he felt betrayed. Correct me if I'm wrong in going that far, Skip. He gave the impression that there were conversations that took place. And there were promises that were made by Johnny Manziel to the Browns organization. And there was some kind of tacit agreement that was in place that was violated. Now, if this were anybody else, what would we be saying? We'd be saying, get them the hell out of town. Yep. The time has come for us not to give Johnny Manziel that pass. I root for him. I like him a lot. I don't think that's the place for him. I'd like to see him with the Houston Texans personally. I think that he has a chance to have a future, but he'll never have the opportunity, in my opinion, that he had right now, and that is getting handed the ball and being told for the next 6 games, this is yours. He might get a shot to start again, but it's going to be on a week-to-week basis because it's not just about his talent anymore. It's not even about concerns off the field in terms of alcohol or more. What he's really done to himself over the last year is show that he cannot be trusted. And when you show that from the quarterback position for an NFL franchise, that franchise cannot give the franchise to you because they don't trust you.
Yep.
That's what he has done. And I don't know how the hardest thing in the world, Skip, you can speak to this, the hardest thing in the world to regain is trust.
Yep.
Once somebody loses trust in you, it's very, very difficult to get that back.
And obviously, they didn't have a lot of trust in him to begin with because
That's
to
right.
reiterate for those who haven't heard us speak before, all the way up to draft night, Mike Pettin, the head coach, Ray Farmer, the GM, the then coordinator, did not want to draft Johnny Manziel. They had to be encouraged to do so by the owner who was sitting in the war room at that point. Okay, and also to clarify, you're exactly right. When Pettin handed Johnny the reins as they went into their bye week, saying, this team is yours for the final 6 games, he did sit Johnny down, and Johnny, according to Pettin, vowed, promised, I will not embarrass this organization during the bye week. I will not become the distraction I have become in the past. And he went right out and did exactly that. Now, to the very insightful point you made to me yesterday on the show, one I've thought a lot about, though I can't go as far as you go. The only silver lining here for me is that I'm hoping Johnny Manziel has partied and clubbed his way out of Cleveland. I'm hoping that he's going to get another second chance. He's gotten about 6 second chances in Cleveland, but I hope he gets another second chance, a fresh second chance elsewhere. Yeah, exactly. And I'm hoping that you're on to something, that maybe his misbehavior was somewhat premeditated, somewhat calculated to alienate Mike Pettin. I, for one, I don't have a lot of respect for Mike Pettin as a head coach in the National Football League. I think he's a better coordinator than he has proven to be a head coach. Maybe at some point he finds a coordinator's job and he excels at that, because I don't think this is his strength right now. I'm not sure about Ray Farmer because that organization has become dysfunctional, doesn't even begin to tell the story. It's just one big mess. And I was dreading Johnny having to play the last 6 games for a bad football team, arguably the worst football team in the National Football League, and in skill talent alone, I think it's the worst collection of weapons that you could find for any quarterback in the NFL. So I was dreading all that. Now, bottom line, Stephen A., I think we agree on one point. Johnny's still got issues. Johnny's got issues he still hasn't addressed. He hasn't dealt with. He hasn't defeated. And in the grand scheme of things, I'm still not sure that becoming a starting quarterback in the National Football League is Johnny's sole goal in life. Because I got to tell you, has he prioritized it above partying, whatever that entails? Seriously, has he? I'm not sure about that, which is mind-blowing to me, because this is spoiled brat behavior. He's still got too much Johnny football in his psyche, even though he dropped the nickname and dropped the money sign. There's still something operating in him that says, I got this. I got this. I'm so gifted. I'm so talented. I'm so cool that I can have a great time off the field and a great time on the field. And even though we've seen a little recent flash of what he could be as a quarterback, can I make the case that he's a bona fide starter or star in this league? I cannot. I still have my hopes, still love the kid, still believe he could become a star. But as we see with Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, and Russell Wilson, you have to obsess with it. You have to devote your existence to becoming that guy. I know there have been some issues about Russell lately, some of his teammates having issue with his celebrity, but hey, in those first few years as they built toward 2 Super Bowl appearances and 1 victory, Russell Wilson was obsessed with becoming a starting and star quarterback in this league. I don't see it from Johnny. Stephen A., I know for a fact he's still hanging with the wrong people. If you surround yourself with losers, you're going to become a loser. And Stephen A., in the end, you know how this league operates. There'll come a point where the whole league just decides, you're out, kid. You know, we just don't have any use for you. We saw it with Vince Young. I was a big fan. We saw it with Josh Freeman. They both had way more success than Johnny ever dreamed so far of having in the National Football League. And they're out. They're out. And they're still like in their primes. And the league just said, you got problems. You got issues. You're gone. Yep.
Let me ask you something. I'm dead serious here. I'm going to ask the question because I think that you're the best person to answer this. You mentioned Jerry Jones and Johnny Manziel in the same sentence over a week ago.
I did.
You wouldn't mind seeing Johnny Manziel there. This is Big D. I'm talking about Dallas. That area is one of the best cities in America. It's a beautiful city. No. There's a lot of action. No, there's a lot to do. I mean, I'd live down there if I didn't have to do First Take from here. I got to tell you something. Dallas is lovely. Skip Bayless, how would you feel about, I mean, listen, in all seriousness, how would you feel based on what we've just seen over the last couple of days about Johnny ending up a Dallas Cowboy?
Okay, remember, my point was I look back in 2020 hindsight and wish now that Jerry had drafted Johnny instead of Zach Martin, who's becoming he's a Pro Bowler. You know, he could be a Hall of Famer as a guard. Some people say he's the best guard. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. But I was saying if they had Johnny and I was doing best case Johnny, good Johnny, Johnny be good, then could he have won 4 of those games we just talked about out of the 7 straight losses? I think he could have. Now back to your question. This is just what I know from what I've gone through with my family in this area. If you have issues, they will manifest themselves. They will rear their ugly heads no matter where you are and what level of temptation is surrounding you. Trust me, you can get in trouble in Cleveland, Ohio, just as quickly as you can get in trouble in Dallas, Texas, if you want to. Johnny when they got pulled over by the cops came to investigate the issue in the car with his girlfriend. They had been drinking downtown. Well, we just went to Cleveland. I like Cleveland. I think it's a great city. Johnny got in trouble at the hotel he was living at. Remember when he got into some issue where he apparently was intoxicated, and so was the guy that he got into some fracas with in the elevator? Remember that one? Well, it can happen anywhere. So if you're telling me Dallas has that sort of Sin City reputation for the old Cowboys and all the problems they used to get into, much deserved, I'm telling you that until you clean up yourself in your life, your private life, it doesn't matter where you live, you'll stumble into trouble.
Well, you're right about that, but what I would contend with you, Skip, is that there are certain places that, you know, it's more likely for you to get in trouble because the temptation is greater. It's not that you're not going to find trouble. If you want, if you have an addiction, you've got issues, those issues are going to follow you wherever you go. But you can exacerbate those issues depending on your locale. If you like to drink and party, let me assure you, you're going to have more problems in South Beach than you're going to have in Cleveland. You're going to have more problems in Dallas, Texas than you're going to have in Cleveland. You're going to have more problems in L.A. than you're going to have in Cleveland. That when I'm telling you, as a guy that covers basketball, during the regular season, Skip, before we get out of here, during the regular season, if you notice, I almost never make predictions during the regular season unless I'm asked, because the first thing I monitor, where are you spending your off day? Like if you got a back-to-back and you playing the Clippers, you playing the Toronto Raptors, you know, you playing somebody like that, but it's a back-to-back, I'm looking basketball-wise. But if you got an off day in between, I'm looking at you like, let me look at this roster again because I know what certain players like to do in certain cities. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. I got it.
Yeah. That's Johnny Manziel.
All right.
That's Johnny Manziel.
Yep.
So we all want to see Johnny win with another team. We want to see him get it together. But I think the question remains, does he really love football or what football brings? And does he truly want to be a starting quarterback like everybody else wants it for him? Skip brought it up, and we're asking you to vote on Twitter. If the Dallas Cowboys finish the season undefeated with Tony Romo at quarterback, should Stephen A's face, I can't even see it, but I know he's shaking his head, should be in the MVP conversation. Reply yes or no to First Take on Twitter.
Well, is that even debatable? I mean, wouldn't that be a big yes?
Oh, just a lock?
Well, he should be in the conversation.
Look at his face, priceless.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep it moving. The defending champion Golden State Warriors set the record for best start in NBA history at 16-0 as Steph Curry had 24 points and 9 assists in a 111-77 rout of the Los Angeles Lakers on Tuesday night. With their coach sidelined, the Warriors surpassed the 15-0 starts by the Washington Capitals of 1948 and 1949 and the 93-94 Houston Rockets. So Kobe Bryant shot 1 of 14 for just 4 points, matching the worst shooting performance of his career in a game where he had at least one basket. The Lakers dropped to 2-12 with the second worst record in the NBA. Here's Kobe.
I could have scored 80 tonight, would have made a damn difference. You know what I'm saying? Just have bigger problems. I could be out there averaging 35 points a game. It would be what, 3-11? You know what I'm saying? So, we got to figure out how to play systematically in a position that's going to, keep us in ball games.
Stephen A., has the end arrived?
Yes, it has. It's over. One of the greatest players in NBA history, 5-time champion, somebody I will always appreciate for what he's done for the game of basketball. I consider Kobe one of the top 10 players of all time. It's really sad to see this right now. He's shooting more than anybody on the Lakers. He's played 3 less games, has the same amount of shots, 180 field goal attempts as Jordan Clarkson. He's shooting 31% from the field. I'm looking at the numbers right here. He's shooting 19% from three-point range. And even though, Skip, you look at him and you say, okay, he's just missing shots, here's where the problem comes in. He has no help. There's nobody. I mean, Jordan Clarkson is young and talented, but essentially plays the same position because he's the heir apparent. And you look at the parts around him, and I'm not going to go into some tirade about Jim Buss. Everybody knows what I feel. I think that he's the guy that brought this Lakers franchise come crumbling down. I think that he should be fired immediately. I think that Jeannie Buss should be ashamed of herself allowing her brother to tarnish her father's legacy with this product that they put on the basketball court the last 2 years. But looking at that product, what are you supposed to do? And it's not to say that some of these guys can't play, because some of them can. But the parts don't fit together. They are not a good basketball team. And Byron Scott is not the right coach for this team. Byron Scott, to me, is a guy that should be coaching a veteran team with more talent. He'd know what to do with that. But a young team having to teach guys how to play, he's not the guy for that job. So you've got the wrong executive in Jim Buss, the wrong coach in Byron Scott, the wrong roster, and Kobe surrounded by this mess in the waning years of his career. I consider what has transpired with Kobe Bryant over the last 2.5 seasons to be a basketball tragedy. Because considering how great he was, from the time they fired Mike Brown, to bringing in Mike D'Antoni instead of bringing back Phil Jackson, to losing Dwight Howard, to doing all of these different things, I have never seen a player of Kobe's greatness and Kobe's magnitude be left to hang and dry the way that he has. And I think all of that has contributed to the level of attrition that has clearly kicked in. Even the great Kobe Bryant can't be great at age 37 with all of these obstacles joined in colluding with one another to bring him down. It is a damn shame that Kobe has to go out this way, but it is over. There's nothing he can do, especially in the Western Conference, and his skills have diminished. What we're seeing is several pump fakes, barely able to get off the ground. Yeah. I mean, that's what we're seeing right now. I don't blame him. I blame Father Time, and I blame the attrition instituted by the Los Angeles Lakers franchise, who, as far as I'm concerned, should be prosecuted for neglect. They neglected Kobe Bryant, left him to hang out and dry, and they have expedited the process of Kobe's demise because of what they have surrounded him with and what they have failed to surround him with. It is a tragedy what they have done to him, but it is what it is, and because of it, we can't deny that he looks how he looks. I believe it is over. I believe Kobe Bryant should retire, and I'm going to go this far, Skip. I don't think he should wait. I doubt he'll do it, but I think Kobe should retire right now.
Right now.
Right now. Whew. Why waste your time with what Jim Buss has done to this team? Jim Buss is, Jim Buss is a basketball abomination. Seriously. His personal feelings have done this to Kobe because he didn't protect this franchise. And if I was Kobe, I would retire right now. I know, I haven't spoken to him. I know he disagrees. I hope he's not offended because you know how much I love me some Kobe Bryant. But he should quit right now. He should retire right now.
I am shocked you just said that. But to your point, also a basketball abomination was having to watch this former all-time great player have to do that on that stage last night. Yeah. That was, you call it a tragedy. It's tragic. Bad. I mean, there are lots of other tragedies going on in life, but in basketball, that was tragic. And my only hope is, because I know he likes you and I know he respects you, and if he happened to just hear what you just said, I am hoping against hope that he is enraged by it, that he becomes wildly motivated by it, as we used to see him get wildly motivated by the slightest, anyone saying the slightest negativity toward him. And I'm hoping that he says, Stephen A. Smith, I'm going to make you eat those words. I'm just not sure he's any longer capable of doing that. It looks to me like Father Time punched this man in the stomach at age, 38? Punched him, is he 37 or 38? I'm losing track. But whatever he is, you punched him in the stomach and just said, old man, it's over. Because
he's 37.
37.
He's 37,
yeah.
Turns 28. He turns 28 August 23rd.
He looked 38 last night. And I look at all the injuries the serious injuries this man has gone through, from the Achilles to the knee to the shoulder. And I don't know what happened, but he was not able to rehab through all of them. I don't know how much he wanted to. I don't know if he had it in his heart, because it takes supreme dedication to rehab all those injuries and get back to where you were, even a semblance of what you were. But he did not do, he wasn't able to do that, and maybe just the attrition and toll on his body, just too much. And you mentioned his three-point shooting, 19.5%. He's 15 of 77. That means 62 times in this young basketball season, Kobe Bryant has missed three-point shots. And I'm going to say what I said to you a couple of weeks back. Nobody honors his blow-by ability anymore. So now he's just a spot-up three-point shooter. So he catches, he goes up to shoot, and nobody is afraid that Kobe Bryant's going to put it on the deck and beat them off the dribble and do vintage Kobe damage going to the rack. We don't see that anymore. He's not capable of doing that. So they run at him on the three-point line, and it makes the degree of difficulty of making those shots higher than he's ever faced. And he's prone to shoot air balls, and as you said, 31% from the field. And you realize we had a debate, whenever it was, just before the season started, Remember the poll of ESPN experts ranked Kobe 93rd, and you were offended by it, and you should have been. I get it. And I was arguing, well, but that's how he's performed of late. You can't argue with the numbers. And now I look at the player efficiency rating numbers, and Kobe Bryant, of all NBA players, ranks 289th. And if we do it of qualified NBA players, those on pace to play at least 500 minutes, Kobe ranks 251st. The numbers are screaming. One other quick point. You're talking about shots. He's averaging 16.4 shot attempts per game. He's also averaging 15 points a game, which is tops on the Lakers. But he's taken 4 more shots than Jordan Clarkson a game, and he's ranking 20th in the NBA in shots taken per game. So my point is, he's still taking high volume shots, and he's missing a whole lot of them.
Well, let me give you a tidbit of news and some news nuggets here. Number one, let's make sure I'm clear about my position. I believe he should retire right now. But I believe that because he's on the Lakers. I believe the Lakers stink. I believe the Lakers franchise should be ashamed of themselves. I believe that Jeannie Buss has allowed Jim Buss to betray Lakers Nation. And as a result, you ain't going anywhere. I don't believe that Kobe Bryant can't play any longer. If somehow, some way, what I was hearing was correct, that somehow, some way, if Kobe Bryant came back and played well this year and had enough legs under him, that he would want 2 more years and could potentially be willing to end up in New York with Phil Jackson. If you playing with Carmelo Anthony, and yes, to a lesser degree, Kristaps Porzingis, all right, and you lucked up and got Kevin Durant, I think Kobe Bryant will put up better numbers than this. I don't think that Kobe Bryant is shooting this way because he can't play anymore. I know he's not the one he used to be. He's not the player he used to be. But don't tell me he's 31% and 19% shooting from 3-point range, when he's wide open and you got to worry about Carmelo or somebody else doing damage to you. He's this way because he's Kobe and he's playing around a bunch of dudes that ain't on that level compared to the dudes they got to face in the Western Conference. And he has told me if he was going to leave the Lakers, he would have done it years ago when he was a free agent. He's here to stay. He's going to die a Laker. That's it. And I'm saying if that's the case, you're already dead because it's the Lakers. It's Jim Buss's Lakers. And ain't even life support for them. They're done as long as this man is around. So if that's the case, that's why I'm saying Kobe needs to retire, because he has told me he's determined to stay a Laker to the end. And the end has arrived. The Lakers aren't even relevant.
Okay, so if he did hypothetically quit today, would he quit collecting the checks? Would he want what's he making, $24 million or whatever it is this year?
Yeah, that's why he's probably not going to quit.
Well, okay.
He likes his money too now.
All right.
He likes his money too now.
And the last quick point is that comment he made about, hey, I could be averaging 35 points a game and we'd still probably be 3-11. Well, that's to me pointing fingers at what you're pointing fingers at Kupchak and Buss. He's talking about we got to do better with our ball movement and our synchronicity and all those good things. But the point is, I think he's basically saying, I just can't do much with what I have to work with here. So, I don't know.
That's exactly
maybe it is time.
It's obvious.
Yeah.
It's time.
It's a conversation. No one wants to have Kobe's a legend, but the numbers here show Steph Curry would have to miss his next 219 three-point field goal attempts to have the same three-point field goal percentage as Kobe.
Miss him in a row?
Molly, Skip,
yes.
Molly and
219.
Skip. One more thing real quick, y'all. Years ago, a bunch of friends looked at Shaq when he was walking off the court in Boston, kneeling over and stuff like that. We looked at him and we said, it's time, bro. It's over. Even Shaq had to come to that realization. We all do. That's where we are.
What's better than all pumpkin everything? Everything you need on GoPhone from AT&T. For $40 a month after a $5 auto refill discount, you get unlimited talk, text, and data usage with the first 1.5 gigabytes at high speed. So you can post pumpkin lattes, stream pumpkin parties, share sweet nothings over pumpkin stuffing. Okay, maybe I went a little too far, but it's unlimited, so you can too.
Go to the closest AT&T store and ask for a GoPhone for $40 a month after a $5 auto refill discount with no annual contract and no credit check. Plus, get unlimited talk, text, and data usage with the first 1.5 gigabytes at high speed. AT&T, mobilizing your world.
First payment is $45. $5 discount applied to monthly rate plan charge upon enrollment in auto refill. After first 1.5 gigabytes, get data speeds up to 128 kilobytes per second. Additional charges and restrictions apply. See store for details.
Meanwhile, in college, the updated college football playoff rankings were released last night on ESPN, and there were three major shifts. Skip's Oklahoma Sooners moved up to 3. Iowa jumped to the 4th spot. Notre Dame fell out of the top 4 to 6. So as it stands right now, Clemson is 1, Alabama's 2, Oklahoma 3, and Iowa is 4. Skip, did they get it right?
No, they did not. Molly, Stephen A. Here are my 4. I'll go with Clemson. I'll go with Alabama. I have Michigan State 3rd on my list, and I think Michigan State got the raw deal here. I know we got more rankings to come, but as of right here, right now, Michigan State got robbed. And then I have my Oklahoma Sooners 4th. Now, do I think Michigan State has a slightly better resume than even my Sooners? I do, right here, right now. Now, let me qualify or disqualify myself, as Molly just pointed out. I was born and bred an OU fan. I can't help it. I apologize. I'm sorry. It's in my blood. My grandfather took me to my first game when I was 5 years old in Norman, Oklahoma. And I'm sorry. I'm Sooner born and bred, and when I die, I'll be Sooner dead. That's how it goes in the fight song. Okay, so again, maybe I'm not objective, but here's the point, Stephen A. I have thought this from day one of this season. The best team in college football is my Oklahoma Sooners. FPI agrees with me. The Football Power Index here at ESPN has Oklahoma ranked number 1. The Vegas odds makers say that Oklahoma, they would favor against anybody on this list on a neutral field right here, right now. So do I still think they're the best? I do. If we're just going eye test, I would put Oklahoma number 1. My Oklahoma Sooners lost to the Texas Longhorns on a neutral field in Dallas, Texas back in October, and I can't get over it. I can't forgive Bob Stoops. I like him very much as a guy. I don't like him as a motivator of my football team. And I'm sorry, it's just unforgivable to lose to that team 24-17 because it was a bad team then, and it's not a very good team right now. It's not like Texas caught fire and took off. Texas had just lost 50-7 at TCU. Texas ran for 313 yards against my Sooners. I'm sorry, I can't get over that. Are they top 4? I'll barely wedge them in there at number 4. But Michigan State just went with its 2 backup quarterbacks to Ohio State. We know what just happened. And they kicked Ohio State's rears in both lines of scrimmage. Offensive line, defensive line dominated the football game. Low-scoring game dominated in the interior by Michigan State. I'm impressed. They lost one game on a very controversial play. A receiver ran out of bounds and was allowed to come back in and catch a late touchdown pass. They kind of played down to the level at Nebraska, 39-38. I'm sorry, I can't hold that against them the way I hold 24-17 Texas over Oklahoma. So in the end, do I think my Sooners can go up in the Bedlam game and win at Oklahoma State? I do. They're 6.5-point favorites, and I think they'll win by at least 2 touchdowns. Then we can have the conversation from there on. But right here, right now, I gave you my top 4. Yours are what?
I totally agree with you. I've got Alabama at number 1. I've got Clemson at number 2. I do agree with you that Michigan State should be number 3, considering the fact that they beat the reigning defending national champions in such a big game at Ohio State on the road, dominating them at both lines of scrimmage, neutralizing Ezekiel Elliott, even though one would argue that Urban Meyer did that with him by giving him the ball just 12 times. I mean, whether it's J.T. Barrett or Cardell Jones, nobody could do anything. J.T. Barrett wasn't able to get it done. Urban Meyer was too conservative, so he hurt himself and his team. And then you've got Ezekiel Elliott, who obviously wasn't getting the ball enough, so couldn't do but so much damage. But you have to surmise that the way Michigan State was playing at the line of scrimmage, what you saw, what I saw, Urban Meyer saw even better, which may explain why he elected not to give Ezekiel Elliott the ball. Even though I still think he should have done it, that may have been the reason he had trepidation. So I look at Michigan State at number 3 because their lone losses to Nebraska, which was 39-38. They beat the number 2 team in the nation at Ohio State. They beat number 7 at the time in Oregon. They beat number 12 Michigan, even though they lucked up and did it. There are wins. There are wins against 3 top 12 teams. I can't ignore that. And then at number 4, you go to Oklahoma. I know they lost to Texas. Hard to forgive them for that, but they did beat Tennessee, who was number 23 at the time. They did beat Baylor, who was number 4 at the time. They did beat TCU, even though they didn't have Trayvon Boykin. They were number 11 at the time. So you're looking at it from that perspective, and you're saying, okay, they're there, and especially if they beat Oklahoma State, they were already, like you said, looking like the best team in the nation. How can you ignore it? Now, you got people that look at Iowa. Here's my problem with Iowa, and this is why they can't make my top 4, Skip. Their 2 biggest wins were against number 19, Wisconsin, and they just obliterated Greeny School, Northwestern, who was ranked 20th at the time, and they beat them 40-10. Okay? And, you just look at them and you look at schedule and you say, well, listen, I don't think they deserve to be in there. Not only that, chances are they're going to meet Michigan State for the Big Ten title. So if that's the case, why not let that determine whether or not they're in the top 4? Okay, let that determine it. That's why I don't believe they should be there.
I think it will.
Well, I'm saying it will, but I guess what I'm saying to you is my top 4 is Alabama, Clemson, Michigan State, and Oklahoma. It should be with Iowa on the outside looking in. Notre Dame should be tough, nipping at the heels. And Oklahoma State might find itself back in the mix if they knock off Oklahoma.
Yep, I agree. And by the way, point of order for our show, Northwestern is also Dee's team and Antoine's team. Am I right about that?
Yep.
Just for the record, I know it's a little bit of an inside joke, but it's not just Greeny.
Delina Turman, Antoine Lewis.
It's Greeny. I'll go with Delina.
Well,
I'll go with Delina. Well, of course, Wilbon. I mean, we know that. But I know about Delina. Our producer, Antoine Lewis, I'm not sure. I mean, he talks about the Chicago roots, Skip. I never see him wearing any Bears gear. I never see him wearing any Bulls gear. Don't get me started with the Black Horse who've got a couple of Stanley Cup titles in recent memory. And the Cubs or the White Sox. We don't see Antoine walking around representing Chicago in any way other than them thick vest sweaters that he wears. That's about it. That's about it. You don't see anything else.
If it were up to Antoine, we would lead this show with the Bears every day, or the Bulls.
That's right. He would say that. He would say that, but he doesn't wear anything. You got to ask him where he's from. You know where the rest of them are from. You got to ask him. So I don't know about Antoine.
I think you're disrespecting him. I don't get that at all. I think he's Chicago through and through.
I don't see Chicago. I don't see Chicago. I've been to Chicago more than Antoine in recent memory.
Stop it. All right, you are wrong for that, Stephen A.
I'm just saying. I don't know.
Stop it. All right.
So, from Chicago, I don't know if I give Antoine that kind of love. I don't know if he's a real true homie.
Okay.
I don't know.
So both of you have Iowa out, Michigan State in. So Clemson, Bama, Michigan State, Oklahoma, but in slightly different orders. The Panthers are preparing to face former teammate Greg Hardy on Thanksgiving Day at Dallas, and you might be surprised to learn that despite his off-the-field issues, Hardy still has the support of some of his former teammates. Outside linebacker Thomas Davis was among several players who lobbied management to re-sign Hardy after his domestic violence charges were dropped in February. Yesterday, Davis said this: Greg Hardy is a guy that you flat out want on your football team. He's a guy that's a game changer. He can go out and totally wreck a game plan if you allow him to. Of course, we went and spoke up for him, trying to get him back, but a few details came out with this whole situation, and unfortunately, we weren't able to get him back. Now he's a part of the Dallas Cowboys, and guess who we play this week? Several other Panthers still consider Hardy a friend and have positive things to say about the defensive end, including his former coach, Ron Rivera. Mark Schlereth is in the house, the Super Bowl champ. You always keep it real, Mark.
Okay.
How do you think the Panthers should feel and view Hardy now?
Well, I mean, he's part of the enemy. He's part of the team you're playing against, and they have great respect for what he has done and what he has accomplished on the football field, and they should, because he's a great football player. That's why the guy still has a job. If you're a great football player, a multitude of sins will be forgiven if you can rush the passer, and that guy can flat out rush the passer. So, of course, they've got great respect for what he can do on a football field. You know, off the football field, that's a whole nother story. But the locker room can be one of the most forgiving places on planet Earth. You can basically turn a blind eye to some things in a locker room if a guy can play the game. And we've seen that with the Dallas Cowboys. We've seen that in response to why they have Greg Hardy on their football team right now. So, the one thing about a locker room that you always have to understand is, as long as I respect that you're going to show up on Sunday and play well, I can usually basically deal with everything else. Now, it doesn't mean I'm going to have a personal relationship with you. Doesn't mean we're going to be roommates. We're not picking out curtains together. We're not going out together. I'm not having you come over to the house. I don't really want any of that in my life. But if you show up on Sunday and sack the quarterback, you know what? We'll deal with that. And that's usually how a locker room kind of the existence of being in a locker room. It's a really big place with a lot of different personalities, a lot of big personalities, and a lot of different people from all stretches of planet Earth, from all different locations. And there are a lot of things that you basically figure out how to survive when you live in a locker room.
Stephen A.
Well, I think that Mark's absolutely right, but I'll take it a step further. On a personal level, those relationships that you cultivate in the locker room, ultimately, a lot of times, more instances than not, can help you become a better person, and in this case, a better man. That may not have been the case with Greg Hardy. As you heard Thomas Davis point out, there were things that came to light after we went upstairs trying to fight for him, so we weren't able to get it done. Because there's certain things that are just unavoidable. There are lines that get crossed, and you can only help someone but so much in that regard. But the flip side to it is that with all the issues that Greg Hardy has had, when you're looking somebody in the face who's just as big, who's just as strong, who's just as menacing, who's just as productive, that's looking at you and you respect him, he could potentially have that kind of influence. Why do we think about for 1 second when we're talking about issues of domestic violence and beyond. One of the reasons that the NOW organization and so many advocates on behalf of victims of domestic violence are, come to the public for assistance and help is because it's something that other people can help provide because of the level of accountability that they can force that particular individual to have. And so when you look at it from that perspective, as Mark was alluding to, it's not just about winning on Sundays. Of course, it's about that. And of course, it's about contributing by playing well, but also the respect and the camaraderie and the kinship and the brotherhood that you're able to cultivate in some respects inside that locker room can facilitate you becoming a better human being, particularly when guys just as productive as you are better human beings, and they're willing to hold you accountable. There's a reason. Don't think for 1 second that Jerry Jones just, they've got these programs and all of this stuff in Dallas. You know what helps? As much as I chide the Dallas Cowboys or whatever, I never hear anything but grave, glowing reviews about the man that Jason Witten is. And to walk into that locker room and to have to deal with him, if you act a certain way, it's going to have an impact. Jason Witten's talking to the reporters the other day. Des Bryant starts going off. Who stops the interview and walks over there? It's Jason Witten, because you have that kind of leadership. That's what a locker room does. And when you have that, it can actually facilitate you being better, not just on the field, but off the field. So I respect where the Carolina Panthers were coming from, because what they were saying is we thought we could have had an impact in a positive way towards this guy.
Yeah, okay. Good points. Now let me make 3 quick ones. If I were a Carolina Panther this week, I think it would be shrewd. I would encourage my brothers in my locker room to say nice, he's our former brother kind of things about Greg Hardy, because as Stephen A. has pointed out several times on this show, the man has a psycho streak in him. And I think he's going to be pretty inspired already. So you might be able to diffuse a little bit of that psycho inspiration if you said, we still love you, even though we certainly don't agree with what you did, but you're still our ex-brother, right? So I get that part of it. Now, if I personally were put in that position, and I'd be curious, if you were interviewed about a Greg Hardy that is still your friend in this, fortunately, heightened sensitivity age that we have toward domestic violence, wouldn't you wouldn't you be a little more circumspect about your support of Greg Hardy? You know, in this tweeting, blogging, internet fire-starting age we live in, wouldn't you sort of keep your support for him private? That would be the position I would feel like, okay, I still like him, but I don't for 1 second agree with what he did domestic violence-wise. So I would no comment the media. I would keep that off radar. And then finally, we flip it around to Greg Hardy's side. And what was his quote the other night about, this is just another nameless, faceless opponent I'm about to face. So I think that because it was reported he sat down with Jerry Jones last week, I think they finally got to him and got through to him. Maybe Rich Dalrymple, the PR director, got through to him. Upcoming Panthers, we don't want you, Greg Hardy, to say one word about your ex-team because you can't help yourself. Once you start, you can't stop. And every time you've opened your mouth, bad things have started to tumble out of it. So it sounded like they just got to him and said, do us a favor this time, this week. Right. Just shut up. It's nameless, faceless. You know, it's just another opponent. End it at that. Go on. We're not going to expose you to the media at all. He hasn't spoken at all this week. Onward and upward. Now, back to the Panthers. Is that the view you would have if you were actually his former teammate?
I think one thing about being in a locker room and doing the things you do from just a work standpoint, the effort that it is to play in the National Football League, and I mean the blood, sweat, and tears, the battle of attrition, both physically and mentally that it is, you have a kinship. Even when a guy screws up and a guy does things that are reprehensible, as Greg Hardy has done, you always feel like, man, maybe I can help that guy. There's a part of that because, you know, one thing about the NFL, like I'd say playing offensive line, the great thing about playing offensive line is you become one. You're a living, breathing organism, and you have guys from different economic backgrounds, from different parts of the country, from the South, from the North. You know, I was born and raised in Alaska. So you have this eclectic
Did you stay
group.
Close to those guys?
Yeah,
when
absolutely.
They split and went other directions?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We're still real close. Yeah. So it's one of those situations where if 5 guys come together from all different walks of life and we become this kind of one unit, so you have that kind of unity within a locker room where you feel like you can help people. And that's part of being a team. That's part of, you know, the thing that makes teams great is when you're willing to sacrifice your own individual, you know, your own individual accolades and all those things to come together and have this all for one, one for all mentality. So I think that's part of it. And I don't blame Thomas Davis for saying, hey, man, we wanted him back because we feel like we can help the guy. I mean, I think there's a part to that. So I think that's a big part of a locker room. So I wouldn't hesitate to say that, hey, what he did was reprehensible. But still, I feel like, you know, I feel like we're a family and we can work through some of these things and we can help the guy. So I think that's part of it. In regards to not talking to the media for Greg Hardy, I think that's a wise thing because that guy has no filter, you know, on his brain, out his mouth, right?
They got it right.
And that's an issue. But for me, if I'm facing him and I know what that issue is and I know the issues that he has, if I'm part of the Carolina Panthers, I'm trying to incite him. I want to see if I can get him kicked out of the game.
Oh, okay. Would you, even if you're his friend?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. You're trying to cut him. You're trying to do something to whatever you can do to get that guy to be the loose wire, the loose cannon that he is.
Well, he's loose.
And then you know what? Take a swing. Take a swing. I got my helmet on. Go ahead. See ya.
Bye.
Well, pardon me for interjecting on that. I'm kind of surprised by Mr. Schlereth right there for saying something like that. And the reason why I would say that is because, you know, when you tight with people, and again, everybody's different. I mean, I can only speak from where I'm from. When you tight with people, you don't want to necessarily incite them to get him, you know, to get him ejected. You don't want something like that. And not to mention the fact that, you know what, you want to go up against the best and you want to beat them. You don't want to trick them into being going so you can win. You want to beat them.
Maybe you want to go against the best. That guy's a full-grown man. I'd rather him get kicked out of the game, right? Makes my job easier. Makes my job easier. I would cut that dude. I would go after that dude and see if I can get him to swing. Why not?
Appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mark Schlereth, always.
I'm kind of surprised by that.
I'm enjoying
well, don't be.
Always a pleasure. Safe travels tonight. Enjoy your family. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to you guys as well.
Happy
Thank you guys.
Mark.
I don't think you have to yell at grown men. You know, I think every single player in that locker room is as disappointed or more disappointed than anybody in the city in terms of how we played and what the outcome of the game was. So for someone to have to yell at them or raise their voice, they're not 2-year-olds. They're grown men. They know exactly what's going on. I think that's that's Harry high school stuff, and that doesn't flow, and that doesn't work, and that's not what people talk about. I mean, I think if that's what people want to scream and yell, then let's hire you because you're really good at it.
Yeah. You know what? I'm not sure I would be worse than 4-6.
Chip Kelly, clearly on edge. That was his response to being asked if he gets mad at players during or after a blowout loss at home to a middle-of-the-pack team. So can Chip Kelly get the Eagles back on track against the Lions tomorrow, Stephen A?
No, because he's too damn arrogant to do so. Maybe tomorrow against the Detroit Lions, possibly. But my projection is that possibly will not happen. The fact of the matter is that Chip Kelly finds himself in this situation. And I found it absolutely comical, Skip, that he chose to speak in that manner to Angelo Cataldi, one of the absolute great morning talk show host in all of America, my friend who I've known for over 20 years now, the voice of Philadelphia as far as I'm concerned, for Chip Kelly to decide to try and go at him. You know what? Angelo was right. I thought Angelo was quite kind when he said maybe I'd be better than 4-6. He probably would, because Angelo Cataldi wouldn't have been stupid enough to let go of Deshaun Jackson. He wouldn't have been stupid enough to let go of Jeremy Maclin. He wouldn't have been stupid enough to let go of LaShawn McCoy and literally have this notion that my system usurps talent on the NFL level. We don't have to have talent. We just have to have the guys that I want that buy into what I'm selling, that will monitor their sleep and let me monitor their diet and let me monitor where they go out with, who they go out with, where they go to eat, what time they get to bed, etc., etc. Chip Kelly evidently feels all of that usurps talent. And when you are that arrogant and that idiotic to believe that, you are going to fall on this level, because this game, rife with talent, will humble you quickly. That's what this comes down to. And when I say idiocy, obviously Chip Kelly is no idiot. The man is 10-6 over his last 2 years. The man knows how to win some football games. But when he walked into the Jeffrey Lurie's office and flat out demanded that these conditions were no longer acceptable, that he needed to have complete control and facelift this roster, it's all on him now. What they're doing right now, their offense seems a bit discombobulated because you got a running back made to run north and south. You got him running east and west. You got a guy like Darren Sproles who you're not utilizing effectively. Evidently, you're starting to discover that Riley Cooper's ability to block doesn't necessarily get it done when you're a wide receiver, because you need to be able to catch the football. You got a guy in Jordan Matthews who's a really, really good, if not great, number 2, but may not be ready to be a number 1 just yet. Might be a year or 2 away from that, so you were premature in doing that. And you got a quarterback in Sam Bradford that you replaced Nick Foles with, but Nick Foles is getting paid less than $1 million, and Sam Bradford's getting paid $13 million. Your grand experiment has fallen flat on your face, and as of right now, he's feeling the heat. Could the Eagles have their pride restored, step up and get it done? Sure they could, because they do have talent. They can play. But they had more talent last year. They had more talent the year before. And Chip Kelly messed all of that up because his ego and his arrogance got in the way of his common sense and what we all know about the NFL. So it's one of those situations where things are coming home to roost. He's falling, seems incapable of getting up. And in my estimation, Skip Bayless, I wouldn't be surprised if they lost tomorrow on Thanksgiving, after all. And I wouldn't be surprised if Chip Kelly ends up departing Philadelphia at the end of this season to go back to the college ranks. Because not only do I think Jeffrey Lurie and Philadelphia is tired of him, I think the whole NFL has figured him out. And as a result, he's going to go back to college where he belongs.
I agree with you. Let me first state, though, obviously, in this division, Philly's still very much afloat. 4-6, you're only a game back of your New York Football Giants. But they have lost 2 straight home games. Silly me, I thought they'd win. The Dolphins and the Bucs at home. I looked at the schedule 3 weeks ago, and I thought, Dolphins, Bucs at Detroit on Thanksgiving. They're going to win 3 straight games. They're going to be maybe in first place in the East after that. And they lost, and I think they're going to lose again. I'll just predict it. I'll say Detroit wins another low-scoring game the way they have the last 2 weeks. I'm going to remind everybody, Detroit won at Aaron Rodgers, scoring just 18 points, and then at home beat what I still think is a very respectable upcoming Oakland Raiders team by scoring 18 points. I think they won that game by 5. It was 18-13. Mm-hmm. So 18-16, 18-13. I'll go 2017 Detroit over Chip Kelly. Now, where will that leave Chip Kelly if he's lost 3 straight games to 3 straight not very good teams, even though I think Detroit and Tampa are coming back? It's going to leave him going back to college. I'm with you. The indications are, all signs point to this would be the end of Chip Kelly, because if they do lose tomorrow, the early game, I think they're tumbling headlong. You can look down the rest of their schedule. I might give them Washington at home, but I think they'd finish 5-11, clearly out of the playoffs, clearly even out of this division. And with all the good college jobs that are open, USC now open, we very much think that LSU will be, and we could go right on down the list of very respectable college jobs where you'd say, gee, I could go and do big things there. With those kinds of openings, I would think Chip Kelly's getting a little sick of, as we heard from the Angelo Cataldi interviews, probably getting a little sick of Philly. Philly, man, when once, you know it better than I do, but once Philly turns on you, man, it's no place to live. So I'm thinking Philly's Chip's on his way out.
Well, keep in mind, I worked for the Philadelphia Inquirer for 17 years.
Yep.
I was a columnist for about 8 years. Okay, the fact of the matter is that, and I still live near the area. I know Philadelphia. It's a phenomenal sports town.
It is.
Don't get me started with the 76ers, which is contaminating everything it touches, okay? Don't get me started with them. But in the case of the Philadelphia Eagles, let me give some advice to Mr. Lane Johnson of the Philadelphia Eagles, who took the liberty of calling out the fans. Do me a favor, respectfully. Shut the hell up, okay? Move out the way. This ain't about you. It's about Chip Kelly.
Yep.
These people in Philadelphia are tired of him because they saw Deshaun Jackson catch the touchdown pass last week when he came back. They saw Jeremy Maclin playing the way, and they've seen him playing the way he's been playing in Kansas City with their 4-game winning streak. They see what LaShawn McCoy, for the most part, has been able to do for Rex Ryan in Buffalo. And they're saying, those were our guys. Why are they gone? So Lane Johnson needs to be quiet, stop personalizing it, and understand that the fans of Philadelphia who know football, know their Eagles, are looking at the coach. They want him gone, okay? That's what this is about. Lane Johnson, mind your business. It ain't got nothing to do with you. You're on the team, I know that, but don't personalize it. They're booing because of the results, but they're booing because they know why the results are what they have been in recent memory. There's no excuse for this. That's why they're going off, and they know that's at the doorsteps of Chip Kelly. Be quiet, zip it, mind your business, put on your uniform, go do your job, get through this season, and let Chip Kelly get the hell out of town. Mind your business. Just be quiet. You don't want the fans turning against you.
Lane Johnson, another one of those spoiled Oklahoma guys. You got one at quarterback and Sam Bradford, he might be back, and you got one at running back, DeMarco Murray. Lane Johnson at tackle. See, it's just too many Oklahoma guys, right?
They're trouble. Those Oklahoma guys.
Maybe.
They're tough to deal with. But they're lovable at the same time. All right, Skip has Detroit 2017. Stephen A., what was your score?
Oh, I'm going to pick the Eagles to lose this game. I think Detroit's going to win 26-19.
Okay, Detroit, clean sweep there.
And now, for Geico's edition of Stuff Found in Your Car, we go inside your side door pocket.
Hello, yes, the crumpled receipt with gum in it. From your anniversary dinner, you sprang for expensive wine, your server was Beth. That dinner was a couple $100. Money you could get back if you switched to Geico and saved hundreds of dollars on your car insurance. I bet you'd save that receipt. Frame it even. But really, where did I go wrong? Was it the corkage fee?
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com today.
Elsewhere, the Packers were supposed to retire Brett Favre's number 7 years ago during their 2008 regular season opener against the Minnesota Vikings, but that didn't happen because he played 3 more seasons, 1 with the Jets and 2 with the Vikings. In fact, Green Bay didn't hold a ceremony to honor him until the past July, and now Favre will return to Lambeau on Thanksgiving to officially have his retired number 4 unveiled during tomorrow's game against the Bears. Nice time to have that happen. Stephen A., how should Packers fans view Favre now?
Well, he's an iconic figure. We all know that I've chided Brett Favre in the past because I thought the last 4 or 5 years of his career, he was the ultimate prima donna. But it wasn't really as much of his fault as it was the media. I mean, it got to a point where it just made me want to throw up every time I heard somebody talk about him. Oh, look at him trip over the offensive lineman and throw the ball underhanded. Oh, look at him scramble for that ball. Look at him jump into the arms of his offensive lineman. It's the kid in him. It never leaves. It's so wonderful. It's so beautiful to watch. You know, it just got to a point where it just made me want to throw up. I was sick to my stomach. But in the end, what it comes down to is this. The man has thrown for 71,838 yards. I believe that's the number. He's thrown for 508 touchdowns, 336 interceptions, leading the league in interceptions 3 times, by the way, Skip Bayless. One year he actually threw 29 interceptions. But in the end, what it comes down to is that he delivered a Super Bowl title. He was absolutely phenomenal. It was mesmerizing to watch him. There is no question that his jersey should have been retired a long time ago. It should not have taken this long. He deserves all the praise and accolades that he has received. There is nothing that positive that come Brett Favre's way that he has not earned. I know that, and if I know it, there isn't a soul alive in Green Bay who doesn't know it. Brett Favre deserves this day. I'm happy for him, and everybody should be. And when he shows up in Green Bay, they should treat him like the iconic figure he has earned himself to be.
I can't really believe you're happy for him after that
I am happy for him.
that you
I am
threw
happy
back at him again.
Well, I'm just saying, it got nauseating sometimes. Right. That's all. Right. It did make me sick. But I know he's great. I know he was great.
Okay, here's my opinion. If any Packer fan has any lingering bitterness or animosity over the end of Brett Favre's playing career in Green Bay, how it went down, I think that lingering animosity or bitterness should be directed at the GM Ted Thompson for prematurely trying to force Brett Favre into retirement. I don't think Brett Favre obviously he didn't want to retire. He needed a little time to collect his thoughts and see how his body responded from the year. Ted Thompson was a big Aaron Rodgers fan because he had drafted Aaron. Aaron had sat there patiently for 3 years. He wanted to cut bait with Brett Favre and go forward with Aaron Rodgers. So what happened? He traded Brett Favre finally to the New York Jets. Brett Favre that year got the Jets to 8-3 before he tore his biceps tendon and pretty much that shut him down and ruined the rest of that year for him and his New York Jets. That year, Aaron Rodgers led the Packers in his first year of starting to 6-10. The next year, Brett Favre, as you know, went to Minnesota and had the greatest old quarterback year that we may ever see, because at age 40 that year, he threw 33 touchdown passes to only 7 interceptions. And he led a team that virtually probably nobody in the world thought could even make the playoffs. He led that team all the way to New Orleans in the NFC Championship game, all the way to overtime of that game, before he did make one bad, desperate throw that led to New Orleans winning that game by 3 points and going on to win the Super Bowl. That was, as we all know, the Bounty Gate game in which New Orleans took its pound of flesh from Brett Favre. He took an unholy beating in that game and was still firing in overtime and still threw for 310 total yards in that game. Meanwhile, Aaron Rodgers did lead that next year's team, his second year starting, to the playoffs. And in overtime, at Arizona in the wild card game, Aaron Rodgers fumbled and watched it carried into the end zone for the touchdown that won the game for the Arizona Cardinals. So there are 2 years in which I believe Brett Favre would have given the Green Bay Packers a far better chance to go farther in the playoffs than Aaron Rodgers was able to. So now we're back to that sort of Peyton Luck argument in Indianapolis. In this case, I blame Ted Thompson for pushing Brett Favre out the back door prematurely. That's just me, because Brett proved the next 2 years he was still highly capable of playing high-level quarterback and more capable than young Aaron Rodgers was capable of.
Well, first of all, I'm glad you went the Peyton Manning, Andrew Luck route because that's exactly where I was going, which is why I don't blame Ted Thompson. And the reason I don't blame Ted Thompson is because after Aaron Rodgers sat down for 3 years, it was a simple situation, although it was a bit different because Brett Favre was still healthy enough to play and he was performing. The fact of the matter is you are making a decision because at some point you're going to have to let Aaron Rodgers go. If you're not going to let him play, he's going to move on and go somewhere else. So you had to make the call, do I get this guy in that's going to be here for me for the next 20 years, or do I get a guy in Brett Favre who each offseason is hinting about he's tired, he's fatigued, it's time to move on, this may be my last year. So Ted Thompson, to me, had every right to make the decision that he made. That second season that you're pointing to, let's understand something, Skip Bayless. Brett Favre was 12-4. 33 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 107.2 quarterback rating, if I remember correctly. It was either 102.7 or 107.2. I keep forgetting. But the point that I'm trying to make to you is let's take that second year, the same year that Brett Favre, you was raving about him in Minnesota. Aaron Rodgers guided the Green Bay Packers to an 11-5 record. When they lost that wild card game to Arizona, it was 51-45. He threw for 28 for 42 for 423 yards, 4 touchdowns, and an interception. Yeah, that fumble happened. That can happen to anybody. Just like an interception the next week for Brett Favre in the NFC Championship game can happen to anybody. Aaron Rodgers that same year, his second year, 30 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, a 103 quarterback rating. And that was his second year as the starter. So I'm looking at it and I'm like, wait a minute here. Ted Thompson didn't look like some fool. And by the way, Aaron Rodgers, you know, within year 4, already had as many Super Bowl titles on his resume than Brett Favre had in 18 to 20 years. So I'm just like, wait a minute. He didn't make the wrong decision.
Okay, but
who
had the better year in those 2 years? Which quarterback had the better year in each of those 2 years?
Brett Favre had the better
year.
Both. Brett Favre had the better year. Wait a minute. You say thank you like that's the period. That's not the period. The period is Andrew Luck with Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers with Brett Favre. Do you want the next 2 to 3 years or do you want the next 20? Once again, it's philosophical.
Well, the way
going
Andrew
with now.
Luck and Aaron
I'm thinking
Rodgers
long term.
are playing right now, I'm not sure that you could answer that question right now. The way
I am sure I can answer that. I still would have made the same decision Irsay made. I still would have made the same decision Ted Thompson made.
All right,
absolutely.
Here's the bottom line.
They made the right decision.
If you're a Green Bay fan, back to Molly's question, you cannot condemn Brett Favre for winding up in 2 more years playing for your division rival Minnesota Vikings.
Well, I agree with that.
Ted Thompson.
I agree with that.
Okay, because Brett didn't want to leave because I think he'd still want to start 2 more years for Green Bay. Well, we finally agreed on something.
But in the end, they made the right decision. They made the right decision.
It's almost Thanksgiving.
I know, and I have a stat that's going to support both of you guys. The Packers have 3 quarterbacks who have won at least 75 games since 1960. Favre, Aaron Rodgers, and Bart Starr. And according to Elias, the only other team to have 3 quarterbacks with 75 wins is who, Skip Bayless? Your Dallas Cowboys. Roger Staubach, Troy Aikman, and Tony Romo. Romo for...
Whoa.
Wait.
How
Romo's
in
got
God's name?
76,
How in God's name are we talking about Brett Favre, Andrew Luck, Aaron Rodgers, Peyton Manning, and somehow the hapless playoff wannabes that are the Dallas Cowboys come into the conversation? How does that happen?
Because magic happens
From you, Miss
every
Connecticut?
day here.
From you?
Wait,
From
she
you?
was talking about Roger Staubach and Troy Aikman, and I think they qualify as postseason greats.
I don't think they qualify. Yes. Who cares about the Cowboys? Forget them.
Curry for 3 over Nance. Got it. Nobody has started a season 16-0 except the Golden State Warriors.
It's a proud moment because it's one of those, you think about all the great teams that have played in this league and suited up and Hall of Famers and legends that have played. Nobody else besides the guys in this locker room have accomplished what we have. So you have to be proud of those moments and appreciate all that went into it. But obviously we keep our perspective on the length of this season and what we have in store for us down the road. So we hope we can keep adding to the record and not lose anytime soon.
The The 16-0 Warriors are now favored by the Basketball Power Index for every game through March 19th when they travel to San Antonio, where Skip Spurs has a 50.1% chance, very specific, to win. Stephen A., how many games will the Warriors win this season?
I could see them winning about 70 games. I think their perimeter shooting, their free throw shooting, the superstar that Steph Curry is, the way they're playing together, the inspirational leadership that Draymond Green provides to them, along with the chip on their shoulders because some people have called them fraudulent champions, all assist in their elevated level of motivation. I think you can catch them napping a few nights a year. I could see them going 72-10, 73-9, something like that, or maybe 70-12. But I think that I can definitely see them winning a minimum of 70 games this year because I think that even when they struggle shooting from the field per se, they have the ability to get to the line and they have the ability to make free throw shots. So when you shoot that well from the field or from the free throw line, most instances they're going to get at you. I do believe they will lose to Oklahoma City at least once this year because Russell Westbrook ain't having it. I do believe it wouldn't shock me at all if Dallas surprised them when they show up in Dallas on Wednesday, December 30th, I believe. I could see Golden State losing that game. They got back-to-backs against Dallas, and then they're at Houston. They're at Dallas, and then at Houston. I could see them losing one of those games. I presume it will be Dallas. But ultimately, they're an offensive juggernaut, the likes of which we haven't seen in terms of their collective shooting ability. And I think in today's game, where no forearms while being back down, no touching, along with no hard fouls, I think the game facilitates guard play. And I think Golden State has that. So in today's system, I could easily see them winning a minimum of 70 games.
So remember, the all-time record is 72-10. Mm-hmm. So if they get
I think they could break
if they get in the ballpark, I'm with you, man. If they have a shot at 73-9, they're going to take it. They're going to play their starters a few more minutes if it's required. Yeah, they will.
Yep.
They're young.
Yes,
they're fresh. They got chips on their shoulders. I agree with all the above. I would go with 73-9 because even the schedule benefits them when it comes to Oklahoma City because in a scheduling quirk, they only have to play one game this year at Oklahoma City. Twice they play the Thunder, obviously, at Golden State. So they got 2 games at San Antonio. They got the 1 game, obviously, at Cleveland. So I just gave you 4 possible losses. Do I think they're going to lose both games at San Antonio? I do not. Could they lose one of those? And as you point out, they have 16 back-to-backs left on the schedule. Well, obviously, it's just life on the NBA road. It's hard to win those back-to-backs. So are they going to lose a few of those? Probably they will. Could they keep it under 9 or fewer losses? Sure they could. And yet I close with the point that LeBron James made a couple days back when he said, and I'm paraphrasing slightly, but he said the Golden State Warriors are the healthiest team in the history of the NBA. Well, that's like a jinx comment to me. So I don't know if he was trying to put that on them. But obviously, Stephen A., we haven't talked about it, but if a starter goes down, if a star goes down, well, clearly that record could go up. The loss column could go up. But if they stay healthy, right, much to LeBron's chagrin, I think they're going to win 73 games because I don't see anybody on the schedule who can mess with them at this point.
I know this much. Steph Curry can't get hurt. That I promise you. He gets hurt, it changes everything.
Everything.
I mean, you'll plummet. You can literally go from 73-9 to like 53-29 without Steph Curry.
Nope, I'm with you. You're right.
So we asked you earlier in the show if the Cowboys finish the season unbeaten with Tony Romo at quarterback, should Romo be in the MVP conversation? Thank you for voting. The results are in. Drum roll. 70% say no.
No?
No.
What's wrong with those people?
There's 30 that say yes.
Well, 30.
Most people have common sense.
Yes.
No.
Most people have common sense.
So let's think about this. The question is, if the Dallas Cowboys win out and Tony Romo is the main reason they win out, that would mean Tony Romo goes 9-0 this year while the team without him went 0-7. And that would mean that Tony Romo beat Cam's 10-0 Panthers. He won at Washington, no cakewalk, at Green Bay, at Buffalo, and beat the Jets? You're kidding me. If he was the reason, if he played at the level he played at last year, MVP level, he wouldn't even be in the conversation at 9-0. Are you kidding me? That's wrong.
Well, first
it's
of
just
all,
flat out
well, first
wrong.
of all, it's wrong, but wrong. Just stop
you
it.
know I'm right
if this
about
was
this.
anybody
No,
else,
you're just
you wouldn't even
cowboy
brought
hating.
up this subject.
You know
you
what?
brought
You're
it up
cowboy
because
hating
of the Cowboys.
self.
You brought it
Yeah.
up because you're looking for an excuse
Nope,
for them to
I'm
be
not.
relevant.
It's just a
this
fact.
Tony Romo, stop it. Listen,
It's a
first of all,
fact.
why don't you have
Come
some
on.
decency and respect for Tony Romo? Why don't you bring him up when it comes playoff time? How come he can't give
now
us
we're
more
gonna
than 2
change the
playoff
argument
victories
to
in
playoff
10
time.
years? It's not the argument.
The argument
fact is you
was,
shouldn't even be
if he
thinking about
goes
him.
9-0 and he plays like an MVP, is he even in the conversation? And you said no? Are you kidding me? That's just pure hate, cowboy hate.
What?
That's okay.
You know
we
what?
know what you.
Happy
We know where you
Thanksgiving.
stand.
'Cause I don't even want to deal with you right now. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy
'Cause I don't even deal with you.
Thanksgiving.
I don't even deal with you.
Unhappy.
Goodbye.
Appreciate you listening to us. Catch First Take weekdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, as always, and catch The Rear at 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2.